Before anyone could testify, they were gone. The man at the center of the case died in his cell. Key witnesses vanished, recanted, or were suddenly discredited. Others passed away under circumstances that raised more questions than answers. And just like that, one of the most powerful trials in modern history collapsed before it ever reached a jury. So the real question isn't what happened in the Epstein case, it's who didn't live long enough to tell their side of the story. Stay with me, because once you see the pattern, you'll never look at this case the same way again. Jeffrey Epstein died on August 10, 2019, before he ever faced trial. At the time of his death, he was the central defendant in a major federal sex trafficking case in New York, a case that many believed could expose powerful connections far beyond Epstein himself. He was found unresponsive in his jail cell, and authorities later ruled his death a suicide by hanging. But Epstein's death didn't just end a criminal case, it ended the possibility of courtroom testimony, no cross-examinations, no sworn statements about who knew what and when. Almost immediately, questions flooded in, and rumors spread that Epstein had been silenced to protect influential figures. While later reviews by the Department of Justice and the FBI stated they found no credible evidence that Epstein used blackmail against powerful associates, the timing and circumstances of his death continue to fuel public suspicion and online speculation to this day. 2. Jean-Luc Brunel died February 19, 2022. Jean-Luc Brunel was a French modeling agent and one of Jeffrey Epstein's closest known associates. Multiple women accused him of recruiting young girls and introducing them to Epstein, allegations that placed him at the center of the wider network surrounding the case. Brunel was arrested in France and was awaiting trial on charges related to sexual assault of minors when he died. In February 2022, Brunel was found dead in his prison cell. Authorities ruled his death a suicide by hanging. Like Epstein's, Brunel's death meant he never faced a courtroom, never testified under oath, and never answered questions about who else may have been involved. His passing removed another key figure who could have shed light on how Epstein's operation allegedly functioned behind the scenes, adding fuel to ongoing speculation about lost testimony. Virginia Giuffre died April 25, 2025. Virginia Giuffre was one of the most prominent accusers in the Epstein case and a central figure in bringing global attention to the scandal. She publicly alleged that Epstein trafficked her to powerful men and played a key role in lawsuits that led to the unsealing of hundreds of Epstein-related documents. Her testimony and legal actions shaped much of what the public knows today. In April 2025, Giuffre was found dead at her home in Australia. Authorities reported her death as a suicide, citing years of trauma, stress, and ongoing legal and public pressure. Her death shocked supporters and critics alike, as it silenced one of the most influential survivor voices connected to the Epstein case. While no foul play was alleged, her passing intensified online discussions about how many central figures in the case were no longer alive to testify or continue speaking publicly. Carolyn Andriano died 2023. Carolyn Andriano was an Epstein survivor who testified in the 2021 trial of Ghislaine Maxwell. By taking the stand, she became one of the few individuals to provide sworn, first-hand testimony about the abuse tied to Epstein's network. Her role made her an important corroborating witness in the broader narrative of exploitation. In 2023, Andriano was found dead in a Florida hotel room. Authorities ruled her death an accidental overdose. While officials reported no evidence of foul play, her death added to public concern, as another survivor who had already testified was no longer alive. For many observers, it reinforced the perception that voices connected to the case continued to disappear under tragic circumstances. Alfredo Rodriguez died 2015.
Alfredo Rodriguez was Jeffrey Epstein's former butler and one of the earliest insiders to speak about Epstein's lifestyle. He claimed to have knowledge of Epstein's visitors and operations and provided information during earlier legal proceedings connected to Epstein's first conviction. Rodriguez died in 2015, years before Epstein's 2019 arrest and the release of the Epstein files. His death meant that any additional information he may have held was never explored during the later federal investigations. Although his passing was not surrounded by public controversy at the time, it is often cited in online discussions as another example of potentially valuable testimony that was never fully revisited. Witnesses deemed unreliable or silenced. Beyond those who died, several individuals connected to the Epstein case never testified or saw their credibility publicly challenged. Some were described as unreliable due to past criminal records, mental health struggles, or inconsistent statements. Others reportedly signed non-disclosure agreements or reached settlements that prevented them from speaking further. While none of this proves wrongdoing, critics argue that discrediting or silencing witnesses had a similar effect to losing them entirely. Without sworn testimony or sustained media attention, their accounts faded from public view, leaving gaps in the historical record of the case. And when you line all of this up, the deaths, the silences, the witnesses who never made it to court, it leaves one uncomfortable question hanging in the air. How many voices connected to the Epstein case were lost before they could fully speak? And more importantly, who else are we not talking about? Is there a name we left out? Someone you believe would have testified if they were still alive or still considered credible? Do you think these were tragic coincidences or something more calculated? Drop the names in the comments, debate it, challenge it. That's where the real conversation starts. And if you want the uncensored breakdowns, the names others won't say out loud, and the stories that don't die quietly, make sure you subscribe, because this case may be closed on paper, but the questions are far from buried.